I kind of feel bad because I feel like my reviews are kind of turning into rants, but this is a Booktok book. I am hesitant about Booktok. And let me tell you, this is incredible writing. It's poetry in a book, has such fascinating, interesting characters, amazing plot twist, romance, beautifully done. It could have been perfect, except this book was like 5 stars, and it was gonna be one of my favorite books of the year. I was like, oh, Rebecca Ross, you know what you're doing. Let's talk about it. So, for those of you who haven't read Divine Rivals, here's a spoiler-free section for you. This is about a girl named Iris Winnow. What am I doing? I hate talking about like summaries, so I'm sorry. Iris Winnow works for a journaling company, and she has basically a co-worker rival. They're basically fighting for the same position. And she starts to write letters to her brother who's at war. His name is Forrest. She puts the letters underneath her wardrobe. And then they start disappearing, and she's like, maybe he's receiving them. Because this is fantasy, so stuff like that happens. And then she gets a response, this isn't Forrest. Anyway, she starts pen paling. She starts to write back and forth with this stranger through the wardrobe, finding out things about him, his age, his gender. They start to be very, very vulnerable to each other, and it's very adorable. Little does she know that it's her rival from work. It was the premise alone that got me like really wanting to read this book, to kind of be in war period time, and it's not historical fiction because it's not World War II. It kind of is inspired by World War II, although there are like fantasy gods. Instead of politics, there's more like the gods. There's 2 gods, and you fight for one, you fight for the other. This book immediately is easy to read. I immediately jumped in, I immediately loved it. If I really like a book, I want to go home and I want to jump in bed and just keep on reading, and it keeps me up. This was one of those books, and it was so beautifully written. You could feel Iris's pain, you could feel her hopes, you could feel her dreams, and she was a human. We got to understand her on a deep level, and I got to resonate at least. I've seen that a lot of people actually cry when reading this book. It is so emotionally driven, and you can perfectly see everything that's happening. Oh, and the plot is just perfect, but oh my gosh, whiplash, hello. So much drama, it's amazing. I would definitely, if you like romance and you like fantasy, this is great. If you like world building, maybe that would be an issue because, you know, I am not someone who relies on world building. Like, I love world building so much. Books like Brandon Sanderson, the world building's amazing, and that's incredible. I kind of wasn't expecting world building. I was just knowing that it was a romance with fantasy elements, and I was fine with that. It is non-spice. Okay. There is an open door intimate scene. Nothing specific, nothing vulgar is mentioned. It's very poetic and assumption driven. Like, you know what's happening, but we don't know what's happening. You know what I mean? And oh my gosh, it's dual perspective. We get to read this book from Iris's perspective and Roman's perspective. So I definitely recommend it. Now, it was kind of on TikTok advertised as like a slow burn enemies to lovers. Now, I would say it was like enemies to lovers, but I feel like because it was enemies to lovers, slow burn up until it wasn't. So for those of you who have read it, stay because we're going to discuss it. I'm going to spoil everything. Iris Winnow. I love her. She's my girl. Honestly, like, she was someone I wasn't like full on annoyed with most of the time. But mostly I just could feel for this girl. We start off in the book where she's saying goodbye to her brother Forrest, who is like her best friend. They are so close to the point that they kiss each other's cheeks. Wait, what? I don't know why I said that. She was driven. She said she'd stay in college, but she's also, like, she's an emotional girl, but she is so, oh my gosh. Just tell yourself how you feel, gosh dang it. Because after her, oh, this is so sad. I definitely teared up when her mom died. And that honestly shocked me. I was like, oh my gosh. I could not believe that. I was not expecting that at all. Was it just a convenience thing that like Rebecca Ross was like, oh, I want her to take these adventures, but she's got a mom to be responsible for. I don't think that's the case, and that didn't bother me. Her mom died Getting run over by a train, that was nuts. The way she dealt with that, letting herself sleep for days and then just being like, okay, I gotta get up and do something. I loved Iris's story and I felt close to her. I felt like she was very human. I loved Roman's chapters so much. His depth was equally as great. He has had everything he wanted, but he has an extremely abusive father, verbally abusive, a freaking, oh my gosh, arranged marriage. His dad wanted him to marry someone. I'm like, this is freaking not the 1700s. What is going on? It's like arranged marriages don't happen anymore, but apparently with rich families they do in this world. When his dad is like, well, you get married and you can have little Iris on the side if you want. Like the crap? Hello? And just seeing little triggers like that into Roman's life and how he was attracted to Iris's just freedom, her strong-willed, like her being a woman who paved a way, he admired and he was attracted to that. Honestly, and they were both really hot people and that was awesome. I love when hot people get together. I loved how he defied his father. Oh my gosh. This makes sense. I freaking love this book because it's like Miraculous Ladybug. Like Adriana Gress is this rich person who has daddy issues, and then there's like the baker girl. Let's talk about the best part. The absolute best part of this freaking book is there's a magic wardrobe with letters. I was kicking my feet literally every letter because that was the most adorable thing I have ever witnessed. Because it was so emotionally driven, not physically driven. We got to see them be vulnerable to a level that they weren't vulnerable to anybody except to this stranger through the wardrobe. And the fact that their typewriters were connected. Oh, his sad story with his sister and how she was mourning her mother. That's how Roman knew that something was wrong. So when her mom died, he went to her flat and visited her. That was an insanely good part. I love that he was like showed up when she just left work and he's like breathing heavy and she was all embarrassed. He came for her. Oh, that was so good. I was literally just like dying every time like they would look under the wardrobe or just wait for the sound of a letter coming through and them riding into the middle of the night. That was just perfect. And I loved that pacing and I loved that dynamic. So I loved the first half of the book so much. It was literally 5 stars. After her mom dies and she goes to the war, that's when I feel like it became like not my favorite. I don't think it's because necessarily the war. Like that was super fun and interesting. When she saw that soldier who was the lead of her squadron, forgot his name, she was just talking to him as he died. Like I seriously was crying. I was like, that was so sweet. I just loved also like her loving two people, like falling for Roman but also falling for Carver. The intensity of when Roman comes to find her and she runs out to him in the field because the birds are out. Don't ask me any of these names, I don't remember. She tackles him. That was such an intense scene where they just had to lay there in silence. And she was on top of him. Now, I think what changed for me was I loved the dynamic of her being in love with two people, gaining feelings for Roman and Carver, and I loved like the letter writing so much. Also with the intensity of war, that was cool. I kind of wish we got to know more about Roman, like what his dad thought. Did Roman just like up and leave? Did his dad try to find him? There was Atty and Marisol. I really liked them both. We got to know Addie a little bit more near the end, which I really enjoyed. Kind of interested in her story. Overall though, I literally could care less about anyone except Roman and Iris. When Roman and Iris went to war, he was trying to keep her from reading Carver's letter. That was so intense, and I knew it was just a matter of time before she connected the dots or something was gonna happen. I just wasn't expecting her to find out during this book because I knew there was a second book coming and it's coming out this month. When she found out, she was like absolutely livid, which I feel like, okay, that makes sense. I see why you're upset. And then he kisses her and she's still upset, and then she's not upset and they get married. Now that sounds, the way I put it maybe doesn't sound that great, but that's exactly how I saw it. I was like, okay, the dynamic has changed. What's gonna happen? Because now she's realizing, oh, this guy, Roman, that I've hated from work, who's freaking annoying, self-centered, and cocky, is the guy I've been writing, and he is not that at all. I know we're in the middle of a war here. I know that getting married, you just kind of want to hurry and do it because Who knows what will happen? Who knows how much time they have left? But I was hoping that Rebecca Ross wouldn't have him get married in this book. I have nothing against marriage. I personally married my husband like 6 months after meeting him. That's crazy, I know. For the sake of the slow burn and for the sake of the plot, like, I don't need it to be realistic. I wanted it to be freaking awesome. I wanted more of a development with the new dynamic of their relationship. And I feel like that's a valid point. I feel like instead of her getting over her anger, him proposing, and them literally getting married, I much would have rather like them to kind of take a step back and redevelop that relationship, a new relationship. The letters were still brought up, like during their wedding night, they read each other's letters. Let me talk about when she would wake up early and they'd go on runs together. Like, I loved those little moments. I kind of wish we had more of that with their new identities being discovered. And I don't think that's bad of me to wish. I think it's very valid. I guess it was just a little jarring to be like, oh, let's get married. Da 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 da. Crap hit the fan. Everyone's dying, and Roman gets taken. Yeah, also, I saw someone say, and I completely agree with my whole heart, someone said the epilogue should have been taken out. The epilogue is where Dacker is like, oh, this is what I see on the world down below. And yeah, I was like, ooh, wait, maybe this world building should have been more developed before we jumped into Dacker's point of view, because what the heck is even going on? The writing is 10 out of 10 though. Like, her descriptions and everything is so amazing, and I loved her characters. I guess I just wish that maybe he should have been taken before they got married, and then there's that still intensity of like, oh no, Roman, I have to find him so I can finally tell him that I love him and that I want a life with him. Now it's just like, oh, let me find my husband, which is fine too. It's just, I wanted that development way bad. And I didn't think that we'd get it so soon. But I felt it coming on, and I was like, oh no. Why is it being rushed all of a sudden when we had such a beautiful slow burn? Yes, I will be reading the second one, and yes, I will be reviewing it. Maybe. I never know. Also, this is my new area. I recently moved, actually less than 2 weeks ago. And if you saw everything around me, you would see that I recently moved. There is more that's going to be added. I bought some frames and plants. But this is what we have for today. I kind of feel bad because I feel like my reviews are kind of turning into rants, but if you like it, you like it. Winnow, Irish wristwatch, hello. I don't like, it's not like I'm, okay, I don't care.